Right. All right, so we're live, first time, and if somebody's out there watching and it's jammed up, somehow let me know. I'll try and check Facebook at some point here. But so I got Keith Benning, who I haven't seen in such a long time, and you know, I see some people that I haven't seen in a long time, and they're like, I'm like, I have to do a double take. We're just at the 30-year reunion. Someone comes up to me and I'm looking at him and I'm like, oh yeah. They start talking and I'm like, that guy's in there somewhere. They don't look the same. You look pretty much just the same. We, facial hair and whatnot, but otherwise the same. So now we got somebody's watching. But we had first talked about having you out. I was going to do Second Amendment, gun stuff. And you contacted me and I'm like, dude, I'm totally looking to talk to you about the animal rescue thing, which is, it's really awesome. I mean, are you the one that's putting the website or the Facebook page together all by yourself? Cause I don't see videos from anybody else, but
it all started.
It's well done as far as like,
there's people that are way smarter than me that do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, ex-wife and I got everything rolling, but then we've got probably 20 online volunteers from all over the country.
Nice.
We've managed to find ones that. So yeah, there's a lot of people working behind the scenes. I'm just the guy in camera that picks up dog food.
But yeah, right. But it it's good. And then I mean, obviously you're doing the live videos from in the truck, and then the ones that are there and stuff. It's hard for me to keep following it because the goofy Facebook algorithm. If you're not constantly engaging with Turtle Mountain, then I'm not constantly seeing everything. But some of them are. I think we looked at a couple last night with got the puppy that had the mange on his front and everything like that. And then you give updates. I saw the one where the one little dog was like wouldn't come out of the kennel. He was super, kind of almost like a little bit aggressive.
They get feral.
Yeah, right. So how first, like we were talking, we were out in the gym beforehand. We're talking about how'd you get out to North Dakota? How did that, like, why that state of all states, right? Like there's like no one lives there. It's like kind of insane that like you'd go from Chicago, which is metropolis, to North Dakota. And it's not exactly like warm or nice or like, any of that, but
winters are brutal. My wife at the time, ex-wife now, she was a RN for 15 years and then ended up going through nurse practitioner school. And it's big cash for the loans. So
yeah, she
ended up, there's a federal government thing where if you work in a high needs area that they pay off like $60,000, $70,000 a school loan.
Oh yeah.
So it was pretty much, okay, well, we can go and do this 2-year thing and knock out this much. So I was like, all right.
Right. That's a good idea.
Didn't leave.
Yeah. I tell you what, I was right after high school, like got into construction, and then the company I was working for got kind of slow, and the guy's like, well, put a broom in your hand and you can, I'm like, I don't want to do that. And I started like looking around for what I could do. And I almost went to Iran because they were going to send me, like, it would have been tax-free. I think you made, like, back then it was a good amount of money, but it was like $50,000 for the year, but it was straight tax-free. So it was like, that'd be awesome. You had to sign up like for a full year to go to Iran and do carpentry work. But so yeah, I wish I would have done it now, but would have been interesting. So, I mean, I spent a lot of time like up Minnesota, up like, I got family up in northern Wisconsin. Used to spend 2 or 3 weeks a year in Canada fishing. There's an acclimation that goes on. Some of your videos, I hear a little North Dakota in your talk. You're picking up a little accent up there.
Yeah, you kind of can't help it.
They got a little "a doodle." How you doing there? Kind of.
I've noticed when I go back home and like after I'm here for a couple of days, and then I go back up there, it kind of changes because I absorb back to what it used to be.
Yeah,
and then people up there looking like,
yeah,
I'm talking right,
talking like sausages from Chicago. And stuff, right. I mean, we never noticed any kind of accent on us at all. But me and this. don't know if you know Phil Borelli or not, but me and Phil would go out to like the Rockies to snowboard and stuff, and we'd look like two thugs. We had like black leather jackets on, and like we looked like two guys that were hanging out the club or whatever here, and we're snowboarding. But at night we put on like clothes that we thought we were supposed to go out in. We didn't look like we were from there at all. And the women there were like, "Oh my God, you two Guidos, what's going on?" Like, we were from Chicago. And they're like, "You sound like you're from New York or something." But it's amazing when you go somewhere how much different the talk is. I've never been to North Dakota. When I go way northern Minnesota, it's super laid back. I mean, everybody's like on a different time frame. You know what I mean? Like, they're for sure going to catch some walleyes, and like nothing's here. Everything's you're running constantly. How's North Dakota? Is it a different pace?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big farm state, so growing season wise, people are busy. But I mean, I live right next to the reservation, so that's where I spend the majority of my time.
Right.
So it's a different world there.
Right. You've always been an outdoors guy, so
yeah.
Once you're there, you're pretty much hooked, right? Like, I mean,
I haven't, honestly, I used to fish when I first moved there before they started doing the rescue stuff. I would fish all the time, hunt all the time. Last year, I think I went fishing once, and then this year I've gone once. But I'm trying to make time, because that's the thing is I was working 7 days a week for months on end, and I just finally realized I can't keep doing that. So now I'm taking more time to try and get back into what I used to do, what I used to love doing.
Sure. Now the rescue, that's okay. So the videos I see, it looks like you've got like some kind of pole barn space or something like that.
It's a 40 by 60 metal building, and then a third of it is house, and then the front 2/3 is what I turned into rescue little by little.
Okay.
We started it in a 1-bedroom house, and that was just a train wreck. And then I ended up sliding into this place and been staying there ever since, and put the kennels in. The guy that owns it I've never even met him in person.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's some rich dude from Oregon, and he wanted a deputy to stay there to watch the place because he had problems with the guy that.
But the house part, you live in the house part.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So like zoning wise, they don't have the same.
I live on 233 acres, and zoning wise, I mean, that's the thing is things are a lot more lax up there as far as.
Yeah, sure. Right. So you're on the site all the time. I think I saw on the Turtle Mountain Facebook page that there's some like 73 puppies or something like that. There's a ton of animals there, or how many? What do you got going on there?
We've got. We ended up putting in last year concrete kennels, so we've got 7 concrete kennels, and then there's like it's almost the size of an ice house. It's a little back room, and that's divided in half. And then now there's cats in one, and then puppies in the other. And I got temporary kennels. I try and keep it to a certain capacity, but you run into situations to where basically, I had what was it, 2 weeks ago? This guy reached out about a mom and puppies that the mom had crawled under the trailer. He didn't know whose dog it was. And he's like, "Can you take him?" And I'm like, "Yeah, not until tomorrow," because every kennel I had was full. The temporary ones I had were full. And you got to watch from a disease standpoint because parvo and distemper and stuff is bad. So I was like, man, I can take him in tomorrow. I'll be over as soon as I get these ones moved out. Well, by the time I got there the next day, 3 of the puppies had frozen died. So, and that's the thing is you play God a lot in those decisions. And it's like, okay, yeah, I could have put him in the living room, whatever, but what I've learned from doing is you got to draw a line sometimes,
right?
And you can't save everything. You do what you can, save what you can when you can, because you can't save them all.
Yeah, right. And if you weren't there, they'd all be screwed, right? So I mean, you're saving a whole mess of them as far as that goes. Now, as far as like vets and stuff like that, do you get a bunch of hands on deck? Do no one? No,
there's 2. There's one vet that's like 45 minutes away, and another vet's it's an hour away. The 45-minute one, it's pointless to even try and get in because there's a bad vet shortage in the state. The hour away one, I'll take the serious ones too. But I mean, we've spent, I would say, probably $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 in vet bills over the last couple of years. So every time I go to the vet, I watch what they do. I ask questions. I have them show me how to do it. They've taken animal advanced first aid classes, and I do a lot of stuff myself. In the community, I work on a lot of people's dogs. you know, to
Okay.
where if they can't afford a vet, because I mean, vet care, and the thing is, especially with on the reservations that people don't get, is they assume that people are buying dogs or taking dogs and then they can't take care of them. And that's where this problem comes from. But the thing is I would say 80% of the people don't buy dogs. They take in strays. A stray walks up starving, they start feeding it and it becomes their dog. Well, they don't a lot of times have the financial means to be able to afford for vet care. So
right.
I kind of fill that gap. A lot of it is I had a big giant pit bull that got attacked by a mountain lion, big gashes in the back.
Wow.
Dogs attacked by other dogs. There's some wild and feral dogs. There's a lot of wild and feral dogs that run around. So a lot of attacks, a lot of that, a lot of gunshots, parvo, different diseases.
A lot of gunshots.
Yeah.
Really? Just like what people see it on their property?
It's a cycle that basically you have a dog that wanders someplace, people will keep it from dying, they'll feed it, and then the dog's not fixed and it costs $300 to get the dog fixed. And if you don't have, you know, we're the second poorest county in the state, and we've got the highest jobless rate in the state. So the money's not there because of the lack of vets. That's unaffordable. So you get overpopulation. And what happens with overpopulation is dogs start to scavenge. So they'll tear into garbage. They'll attack somebody else's dog for, you know, they'll go to eat some other dog's food.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if they haven't eaten in 3 days and they finally get food, they're going to do whatever they can.
Right.
So you get into a dog fight. So, you know, it's a lot of people are just jagoffs that are doing it, you know, because to me, if the dog's tearing into your garbage, will put your garbage up. But some of the dogs, even though they're not aggressive, you know, when you get that food aggression thing, it's kind of a different ballgame. So they'll be protecting their own dogs sometimes.
Sure.
You know?
Okay. All right.
And like I say, there's just idiots. But yeah, I would say probably 3 gunshots a month.
Oh, wow.
And then dog
so the
attacks.
population up there, like, I mean, like you're saying, it's 45 minutes to one and an hour to another vet. Like it, you know, everything's kind of spread out as far as things go.
It's tough geographically because we're bordered by Canada.
Okay.
And like the nearest like legit city is Minot, and that's 2 hours away. The next biggest city is 3 hours away and then 4 hours away. So between us and those major metropolitan areas, it's just little farm towns with a Dairy Queen, a gas station, a bank, a bar. And that's
right. So now do you feel that like because of the way that it's spread, like I would almost think there'd be less dogs in an area that didn't have as many people? Because I mean, people are usually the problem, right? You get a dog, they just make puppies, and then, you know, like that's how this goes because it's a domestic dog. So like, you know, why are there so many dogs in an area that there's not that many people?
Because there are a lot of people. I mean, basically the animal overpopulation issue is the same direct result as a lot of the problems, is taking a group of people that have a lifestyle of nomadic and hunter gathering and cramming them onto a 6x9 square and saying you have to stay here.
Okay.
So you've got a huge, you know, you got the housings and everything else. So you take all that land away and push people in. And then, you know, the fact that Canada's to the north, I mean, it's not that people don't want to work, it's just there's no jobs.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Right. And when you have that, and then basically like any place you go in the country, we've done the disaster rescue stuff in Texas and North Carolina and been in Louisiana, and any place to where there's a problem economically and people don't have a lot of money and there isn't affordable vet care, you've got an overpopulation problem. I mean, Texas is really bad for it. And
Texas is enormous as far as like, I mean, it's like, you know, I have family in Texas, and it's crazy how far you can drive in between like 2 high schools that are going to play a football game. Sometimes they're on the plane because it's so far to go. So yeah, wow. So yeah, that's something to wrap someone's brain around as far as, you know, the distance goes, and then, you know, lack of resources, lack of vets. You got a lot of challenges as far as this rescue thing goes. Are there other rescues in the area?
The nearest real one is 2 hours away.
Wow.
So, and then it goes to that same thing in 2 hours, 3 hours. There's a lot of little garage. There's like another little garage one that's in Devil's Lake. That's like an hour and a half away. And then there's another group that kind of works the same area and Devil's Lake a little bit, but capacity wise and stuff. And the thing is I'm not the first one to do it there. There's been a ton of people that have tried it before, but everybody lasts 6 months, a year, and they give up because it's basically, unless you can focus on spay and neuter education, treat the long-term stuff. If you just focus on pulling dogs off, it's like trying to stop a sucking chest wound with a Band-Aid.
Yeah,
you're never really going to get anywhere. You're going to save lives. That's why they have, we don't do, they call them surrender events. People can come and drop dogs off that they can't take care of. And it's like, okay, yeah, you just saved 30 dogs, but there's going to be another 30 that are going to replace them. So you got to try and deal with.
Well, so I grew up hunting, and we would see people drop dogs off and cats and stuff all the time. Like, we'd go out to the hunting spot, and then there'd be a box, and there'd be puppies in the box. And I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Like, what is this? You gotta be like, why would you? And last night at dinner, girlfriend was like looking through the photos on the Turtle Mountain webpage, and was like, how could people be such assholes? Like, how could? And I'm like, I couldn't, but I think plenty of people out there, their lives suck. They're depressed. They think a dog will make them happy. So then they bring a dog into the situation, and then they realize they can't afford the vet bills. They can't afford to feed the dog. Maybe the shitty job that they had, they lost. So then they go do something stupid. What are people's options when they're in a situation where, I can't keep the dog?
It's a completely different situation up there than it is from most every other area. It's because it comes back to that money thing. But the good thing now is 80% of the animals, 90% of the animals that we take in are from somebody in the community reaching out and saying, hey, I found this dog. I saw this dog, whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't have the time to actively go out looking. So it's really the community's coming together. But the thing is, you have to realize, before we started doing this, people didn't know what an animal shelter really was, and it wasn't a reality. I mean, the reality from inception of the reservation up until the last couple of years was the only animal control was the dog catcher, and the dog catcher would come and pick the dogs up, and he would take them to the dump, and he would shoot them, and then he would keep the cycle going. Now,
is there a culture like, are you by a reservation? That's
yeah. I'm basically. Like it's the reservation is a square, and then tribal land is sprinkled all around. Like, there's tribal land that's a quarter mile from my house. And so, and the population of the county is 70% native. So, I mean, the reservation, it's a technical boundary, but it's just, it's not a culture thing as far as like Native American culture. It's circumstance of the fact that you're an isolated community. There's not a lot of money. There's not a lot of access to vet care. I mean, and spay and neuter is basically the answer to everything. If you can get control of that, and they've got one spay and neuter clinic that comes out once a year. And I had this dude that he didn't have a vehicle, and he had all these feral cats. And I'm like, we got to try and stop this. So I picked them up. The registration for the spay and neuter event started at 6 a.m. We got there at 4:15 in the morning, and we were too late. People had gotten there and lined up and stood outside at 2:30 in the morning. We went there the next day at like 4, and the next day at 3:30 in the morning, and we were too late. So we had to sit there until like noon to be able to squeeze one in from a cancellation that fell through.
Right. Yeah. How long does it take how long does it take a vet to spay, neuter? Female takes longer, right? They can open that dog up, right?
Yeah. I mean, for a spay, it's maybe a 45-minute hour thing, but then you've got recovery time coming out of it. So usually it's a 6-hour block of, from what that dog's down until they get the next one. But yeah, it's a solid hour if everything goes good.
Yeah. So that's a demanding amount of time. But if that dog's not spayed or neutered, the amount of puppies that a dog can create is...
Oh, it's astronomical.
Yeah.
People can't believe it. I mean, I think it's if you take a female and a male one, if they're both unfixed, and if all of their litters remain unfixed, I think after like 5 years, it's like 30,000.
Oh, yeah. Right. It's like nuts. A city. Right. So my grandparents retired by Hayward, and there's a reservation there. And, there is some cultural differences that go on. Like there was a big controversy back when I used to spend summers up there with them. and it was over harvesting walleyes. So like the American Indians up there would protest the white people being there by spearing as many walleyes as they want to, putting them in garbage bags and throwing them on the fucking road, just to be like, go fuck your tourism, like we don't want you here, sort of thing. There's, for the people that are by that area back then, there were no bag limits. There's no hunting season because culturally that's their hunter gatherer type people. So like you would see Native Americans with rifles on their slung, just walking down the street. Like, they could just carry a gun wherever they want to, that kind of thing. They're not subject to the same rules. I don't know if it's the same by you or not.
A lot of it, I don't know anything about that particular situation, but the majority of hunting and fishing rights are one of the few things that were kept by Native Americans from the treaties. I can't remember how many 900 treaties that were made and broken by the U.S. government.
Right,
so right. Hunting and fishing rights were one of the very few things that were kept through a lot of the treaties. So I think people might hold on to that. Maybe some of the protests are misguided, but hunting, I know up by us.
Oh, I'm not even taking a side. I'm not even saying it's misguided. My grandfather was up there as a white guy, and he was pretty much like, they kind of got a point with some of this stuff. Like you've gotten screwed to a point where you've got no tolerance for these tourists that come in there. And, there's towns like, I don't know what the numbers are now. There's towns like, there's an area in northern Wisconsin that's Woodruff, Minocqua, and Tomahawk. These three towns that make up kind of an area together. It's touristy. There's 15,000 people that live there in the wintertime. There's 150,000 people that are there in the summertime. So it's taxing even for a white guy that lives there, all year round, come the summertime when everybody's there. And they're trampling all over things and not, having any respect for what's there. And from what I've seen of photos and stuff, North Dakota, it's a little more bermish or barren than like Wisconsin.
Oh yeah, it's flat.
Yeah,
right. Unless you go far out west, and where I'm at, it's completely flat until you get 5 miles from where I stay, and then it actually turns into the quote unquote mountains, which are basically big foothills.
Bigfoot, right? Okay. And is there an agricultural thing going on there, or is there farming, or is it just open area?
It's all farming.
Okay.
Almost everything's agricultural, and then when you get up by where I'm at with that area, it's service industry. Okay. You've got your bars, your restaurants, your gas stations, your auto parts stuff. So that's basically the main source of jobs. I think there's a hog farm a little bit west, and then there's a few different plants around that people have worked at. But they had a factory out there that was employed 150 people, and they pulled it and moved it overseas. So that was a huge loss.
Yeah,
Shopco closed down. So it's, since I've been there, the new tribal council is really working towards job development, but the economy has just gotten worse because the business is pulling and moving overseas.
Right. So
it really hurts us up there.
Right. So every bit of an economic effect has an effect on the whole dog thing, right? Because as soon as someone loses their job, they're the first thing that's going to go is the taking care of that pet or however that goes.
It just makes it harder for me. I've gone into houses to where the people literally, they have nothing. They've got a couch, they've got a TV that's the size of your monitor.
Yeah.
And, they're scraping by until the first of the month, when they're able to get things, and the dogs are healthy, and well taken care of. So it's just, it's really hard to generalize and put people into a certain group, because there's good pet owners, there's bad pet owners. It's just pet owners up there in general face a lot more challenges than people in normal places like where we were from do.
So now, with no population and you're in obviously the idea is to get these pets homes. I know you do some traveling. You said you got a 2-year-old vehicle that's got 100 and some odd thousand miles on it already. Are you pretty much just hauling these dogs long distance to get them to a more metropolis type of area where people have better economic situations and they've got a better, stable situation to take these animals? Or
yeah,
you got no people there. How are you getting these dogs homes?
We've got a large foster base in Grand Forks and Fargo. I don't really know how it happened, but it did. So that's where most of the dogs will go there first. And then we finally started doing adoptions, just because we had to. We were taking them to different shelters, and the shelters couldn't keep up with what we were moving out. So with doing adoptions, it helps because there's a little source of revenue. So a lot of times what we'll do is, if somebody's got a litter of 8 puppies and they want to keep mom, we'll take the puppies and use the money from that to get mom fixed.
Yeah. Now, do you ever run into, I'm sure there's some sad stuff. Like you run into something that like, they don't make it. Like you said, the one's froze, but like something's diseased or gunshots and stuff like that, where you've got to get a hold of a vet to like put the dog down because it's in such bad shape.
And this is one thing that's controversial, and a lot of people get pissed off and fired up about it, but a lot of times I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
And
no, I've done it. We had a situation where a dog showed up, and I think it was there on my property to die. Like it was really old. It was getting to be winter, had almost no hair. Like it was just in bad shape. And, we helped it along. There was like, I called the vet and he's like, listen, there's nothing that I'm going to be able to do with that dog. Like it had, the nails on it were all like curled around. Like it was old dog. And it's terrible. Like that's a terrible situation.
To me, it's more humane from the simple fact that if I've got a dog, it's hurt bad, or it's really sick, if it's never been in a kennel, if it's never been in a car. So now what you're saying is that it's more humane for me to take that dog, put it in a kennel, put it in a car, drive it for 45 minutes, terrified out of its mind.
Yes, right.
Put it on a cold steel table, have 2 other people has no idea who they are come in, hold its arm, shave its arm, stab it with the needle. I don't like doing it. And if I can, I'll take them to the vet. But to me, the better way to go out is I sit with them for like 10 minutes. I don't just walk up. I sit with them. I bring them treats and I pet them and I hang out with them and I give them treats and I wait until they're completely calm and they're in a good place. And then I do it. And it makes it harder on me, but if that's your last couple moments, you got to do something to try and make it as good as you can.
That's a tough situation for sure. Now I've always had hunting dogs. I grew up hunting. My parents had English Springer Spaniels when we were kids, and we hunted over those dogs. And I've always stuck with hunting breeds. So, like, I got a golden that you met when you came in. I've always stuck with the dog that was like that dog's MO. That like when you came in, he's usually frantic to find something to bring you if you're the person that showed up. Like he's got a sock in his mouth, he's got a teddy bear, he's got something, because that dog's sheer existence is to serve people. So he loves people all the time. I've said it before. He'll be 7 this year, but my next dog I'm going to try and do, like, I feel like it's taking a chance on a shelter dog, because just like all people are not the same, right? Like, I can take any kid. I don't care if he's got autism. I don't care if he's super timid. Anybody, I can teach him how to wrestle, right? I can teach you. Now, will one kid be more aggressive than another kid? Will one kid be better at it than another kid when it comes down to, where he places at the end of the year? Yeah, but I can still teach him how to do it. Dogs, for me, are even more like that because they've been genetically engineered to be a certain thing. Like, I've had 4 golden retrievers and their personality is almost identical all 4 times. It's just, hey boss, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? What can I, sort of a thing where I don't know if some people don't make, like, I know AKC's got on their website kind of a description, and like even the description of like what kind of family this dog could go to, and like how much yard you need for this dog and everything else. People don't spend enough time looking into what they should, what kind of animal they would. My problem that I look at a lot of times, I see people that want a persona. So pit bulls are super popular because that's a persona thing that you're doing. I, was never felt like I needed a tough guy dog because, that's not what the dogs, I like to have the dog and I want to hunt over the dog. So then I think that people get, I would say that if I put my golden retriever in a box and I poke him with a stick and beat the shit out of him and everything else, I'm never going to make that dog mean. What's going to happen is he's going to become super, super like, you know, he's going to roll on his back. Yeah, he's going to show me his belly. He's going to do the opposite. But if I put a pit bull in a cage and I beat the shit out of it and I poke it with a stick, he's going to be like, when I get out of this fucking cage, I'm going to get a hold of you. So, like, I know some of it's conditioning, but that dog is more apt to have the result that's going to turn into a fighting dog than my golden is. That's just, you know, like the way that they're bred.
There's a little predisposition towards that, but I mean, the thing with it is, it's a tough deal because people, a lot of times when they pick a pet, they pick it because they want a dog that looks like this. It's not necessarily the best.
And I better say something too, because I know people got pits, and like my buddy Tony's got one. She's a wonderful dog. I know that they're sweethearts. I'm not picking on pit bulls. I'm kind of picking on people that, like, it's the kid that's 16 years old that buys the Corvette. It's too much car, dude. Like, you can't handle that yet. Maybe you need to be a guy who owns a Chihuahua for a little while before he goes and buys the pit bull, because I see a lot of pits in the rescue, you know, service or rescue area.
That's kind of like a bigger picture thing, because I mean, I'll speak on behalf of pit bulls. I've been bit 30, 40 times by dogs, you know, doing catches, doing everything else. Sure. Yet to be bit by a pit bull. Themselves as a breed, there really isn't a predisposition to fight. You know, right. There's that misconception. I've got one at home that, you know, you could do the same thing. You could put him in a box and you could poke him and beat him and hit him all you want, and he's just going to cower and show his belly. And at some point he's going to fight back, but it's going to take a lot. What happens with pit bulls is that you get a lot of idiots that's what they want because it's cool, it's whatever. And that person is already an idiot. Okay. So now they're taking an animal and they're molding it to be another idiot.
Yeah, right.
So, and that's where that reputation comes from, to where if you've got a puppy that comes out that's a pit, you know, and you raise that dog the right way and you treat that dog the right way, you're not going to have issues, you know. But the problem that people do is, and that's why shelter dogs are good, because everybody thinks a shelter dog's damaged. That's not the case. Right. Yes, some dogs are screwed up, but basically the owner is screwed up, and that's why they're dropping it off, because they weren't ready. Because what I see that happens a lot is I want to get a Christmas present. I want to get a puppy for little Jimmy to teach him responsibility. Yeah, Jimmy, this is your dog. You're completely responsible for taking care of the dog. Nobody else is going to take care of it. It's not a thing. It's a family member. And when you bring that family member in, you need to make sure that everybody in that household, or at least the vast majority of it, is cool with that, and that they've got an understanding, and that they've taken a little bit of time to educate themselves, you know, even just freaking Google. Yeah. Getting a new dog. What do I need to do? You know, and that way, you know, people are engaged as a family because the dog is becoming a member of that family. And the nice thing about a shelter pet is you can go in and you can see what the personality's like. You can see what the temperament's like. You know, you want a chill dog? Okay, then here, hey, this dog is chill. Okay, well, it doesn't look like what I want. What do you want it to look like that for? So it looks cool when you take it for a walk, so you can impress your neighbors, or you want to have a good member of the family. I mean, I've seen, you know, Chihuahuas that are just raging assholes, but the person, I wanted a Chihuahua. Yeah, right. You know, get a Chihuahua that's mixed with something else. And the other good thing about mixed breeds is it's just the genetic diversity. You've got a lot less health problems. Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. I got a purebred German Shepherd that I got before I moved there. And, you know, her drive level is crazy, retrieves dogs, geese, whatever. But she's got hip issues. She's got skin issues. She's got, you know, food allergy things. So the more that you try and perfect that breed, and the more that you reduce that gene pool, the more problems. Essentially that's the problem, right? That dog, even if it's like, I've had good luck with like somebody that bred a dog that was a golden that was bred with a English cream dog, which is a golden in Europe. So like the gene pool's further apart that way, but essentially a lot of people have like, well, I got a golden and my neighbor over there has got a golden, so we'll have puppies, and then we'll sell the puppies to our neighbors, and then pretty much all the dogs are related in the area, and you got a smaller gene pool. Then you've got, you know, hip problems. And my guy that I've got out there, he gets and it just takes like a little bit of work, but he gets fungus on his feet, where it's like you got to do these like washes on his feet to get rid of that stuff. He spends his entire summer like swimming in the lake. And my sons are
they're pretty good with them. Like, he gets a lot of exercise and everything, but they they're perfectly aware at 18 years old that that's a really good thing to do as far as girls go. Like, there's a fair in town here, right? And I was doing something that evening, and I came back and I go, hey, after you get done lifting, go to the fair. So they went to the fair, and it's the carnival situation, right? The tilt-a-whirl and all the other crap going on there and everything else. And when I came back in, I'm like, so how'd it go? And they're like, well, we took the dog. And I'm like, why'd you take the dog? He goes, yeah, it didn't work out. The dog's never been to town. And then we took it when all the lights and people were screaming and everything else. And I'm like, yeah, why would you do that? And they're like, well, girls. And I'm like, all right, son, I don't know where you got that from, but that's exactly right. And I mean, I showed my girlfriend last night your Facebook page, and she was like, oh my God, like she just was, in love with probably you and the dogs all together, which I'm sure is an ongoing struggle that you have to deal with, is batting off all the ladies that
it's I'm trying to do the right thing for the right reason, and
yeah,
like, great. And if they don't, then that's
yeah,
cool
right.
too.
Right. No, but I mean, it's a girl magnet as far as the puppies go. Don't act like it's not. But and I mean, I'm surprised that, like, and I know genetically, like, they say that puppies, like, they have that adorability because it helps them survive, like, as far as life goes, right? Like, if a human gets a hold of a cute puppy, they're going to nourish it and take care of it. If the puppy was ugly, maybe not so much. So then the cute ones get to survive, pass their genes along, and they're cuter and cuter and cuter. I mean, like I said, she was flipping through that thing, and like, there's so many, like, oh my God, look at this. And there's some completely, it's amazing that some of these dogs, how good looking the ones that you have over there are, that someone could drop that off.
It's, it comes back to that same thing, to where, people acknowledge the fact that, hey, I'm not in a position to take care of this dog, or I want to make sure that this dog or this litters of puppies finds a good home. And they know that's one thing that, we make sure that the screening process is good, and we don't,
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
We don't do like personal home visits. We do virtual home visits, with cell phones now.
Too
Somebody
far.
can walk
Yeah.
through and show the house. So by making sure that the screening process is good, when I go to a house and the people are making the sacrifice for the dog, I mean, a lot of times kids are crying because they don't want to see the dog go, but mom and dad know that, hey, this is a better place for it. I can promise them we're going to find it a good home.
Yeah.
And that's important to me, because it's one thing I've tried to do, is even when it's bit me in the ass, is always be honest and truthful with people, and let them know, sometimes, hey, this dog is too aggressive, it's not going to work, or when treating ones in the community, after I'm done, just tell them, look, this dog is probably not going to, I mean, I had this dude that he brought up a Chihuahua. He asked if I could trim the nails, and I'm like, yeah. And as I'm doing, he's like, you remember him? And I'm like, no. And he's like, you don't remember the scars? And I look, and this thing was just mauled. I mean, another dog grabbed it and just tore it to shreds.
Right.
As I was working on it and trying to seal everything up and got it to where it was stable, gave it fluids, and I'm like, this dog's going to die. And I'm like, I'm telling you right now, I'm like, here's some antibiotics, here's this, it's going to die. And the thing lit.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, it's people care about it. There's a big misconception that it's people who are abandoning them or throwing them away. That does happen, but the most part of it is that people are now able to recognize that there's a resource there that was never there before, and it's hard for us to even conceptualize that, because there's always been an animal shelter. There's always been some place to take something. When from like literally Brontosaurus days up until now, that's never existed. So it's not in somebody's consciousness. So we're actually changing that, and I've gone to, some of the houses to where the mom will ask the little girl, tell them what you want to do. So I want to be a vet. I want to work in an animal shelter. I mean, that's a huge thing, because it's such a shift and something new, when people are more and more realizing, about being a good pet owner, and that there is a way, because I think honestly what happens to a lot of people, and maybe that's why some get turned into, people will become jaded, because it's hard to not be, Because if you care too much and you know that you can't take care of it, and you know that if the dog gets hurt, it's going to die, maybe you seal yourself off emotionally from that a little bit because you don't want to feel that pain.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But now with, another option, and if we can actually get a building up next year, it's going to change. And with doing a youth program and everything we're talking about trying to do, I mean, I think it's going to be a permanent long-term change. And what my hope is that it can be a model to be used for other reservations around the country,
Right.
because the reservations, they've got a lot of things stacked against them.
Yeah.
People in the area do.
Right. Well, and then there's, the reservation thing too. There's a lot of alcohol abuse, and I mean, those people are dealt a bad hand to begin with, as it is. And then I don't know how it is out by you, but American Indians and dogs, there is a culture, that history that goes back way back. Like there was at one time no dog or no horses in this area. American Indians used to use the dogs to haul their gear and everything else. Like, I mean, native tribes had dogs. They kept dogs.
One thing, Native Americans.
What?
Not American Indians.
Okay, Native Americans. Yeah, right. Okay, all right. Yeah, no, I'll be corrected. That's fine. So yeah, American Indians is right. Is the old term right now? It's
you can. I mean, the respectful
the
term
indigenous people,
Indigenous Americans, First Nations, or Native Americans.
Right.
So sorry.
No. Hey, you're in North Dakota. You're the last time I saw an indigenous person from this country, like I was probably 4 or 5 years ago when I was up in Minnesota, and we were somewhere near that. But obviously you don't see that many around here. Someone that's got 1/18%, Cherokee or something like that, you wouldn't know it if you saw them. But no, I'm not the most woke guy in the world for sure, but I'll give it a try. So there's definitely, there was a necessity to have dogs back a couple hundred years ago. If another tribe was going to come in and raid, they were the first alarm system for the tribe. And then hunting and all the other stuff, it's the dogs. I've hunted over dogs almost my entire life. Hunting over a dog and not having a dog it's a completely different game. And like we used to lose pheasants and stuff like that, or even ducks and everything else without a dog. You don't lose anything with you got the dog. The dog knows exactly where that thing is. I mean, it's amazing what a dog can do as far as like a dog can smell where something walked. You know what I mean? Like it's not that like pheasants, you'll see some pheasant shit here and there, but that dog knows when it's got something like right in front of it as far as it goes. Like that bird was just right here. He's right on his footprints. Like, you couldn't, if someone paid you $1 million, you couldn't smell where something walked. So, dogs were super valuable as far as that goes. And then, now you've got the situation where those people have been forced onto a small area, what's the population of
I was waiting for you to ask me that question. I got absolutely no idea.
No. I mean, but so when you're there, like percentage wise, is it a lot of indigenous people or?
Yeah, the county's 70%, and most all of my friends are native, and that's where I spend 90% of my time. So, I mean, the only difference between living there is the fact that I don't technically sleep there. But I mean, most everything that I do is, there's other towns that are near there that, population wise are more white. But typically if I got to go to the grocery store or the gas station or whatever.
Up on my grandparents, it was that way too. If you went to the grocery store and stuff like that, it was a lot of the locals were, I don't know what the percentage is there either, but if it wasn't touristy time, there was a lot of indigenous people that were working those jobs and everything else. So now we've talked a lot about dogs, but I do see some cats on there and stuff too. Does a cat just make it better on its own in the wild than because we got wild cats right here in Manteno that cats live just fine.
Cats don't move. That's the problem. So like a dog, people want puppies. They want dog. Cats, it's just hard. Like a cat is going to sit for 3 times longer than a dog is before we can find somebody to adopt it, before we can find it a home. Every other rescue and shelter in the state and the surrounding states, typically they have no room for cats. So cats, it's just basically take in what we can take in. until we find them homes and open up space. But I mean, we've got a waiting list 30 deep for cats, and there's just nothing else we can do. I mean, I'm allergic to them, and I still go and pick them up and rescue them and save them and stuff. I don't have as much contact time, and I don't really typically do the videos of cats as much, just because otherwise I'm wiping my eyes and sneezing for
Yeah.
2 hours afterwards.
I saw the one on there with the antlers on his head. It was like some kind of like Christmas looking costume he had on or something. But it's probably tougher too, because like there's a cat here and the dog. The dog is more of a like part of the family, where the cat's just someone who's like, he lives here, sort of thing. Like he likes people, but he could do without them too. You know what I mean? Like sort of thing. So a cat's got to adapt itself to being a wild cat a lot faster and a lot better than a dog adapts himself to being a wild dog. We've been out hunting and seen, 4 or 5 dogs that were completely feral. Like they were surviving probably just fine on people's garbage and whatever they could scrounge up, catching rabbits and squirrels and stuff like that. But we see wild cats all the time.
Feral cats to me are impossible to turn. I know there's some people that can do it. Feral dogs, if they're under a year, you got a decent chance. If they're under 6 months, your chance gets better. When they hit that 4-month mark, because I've gotten a lot of feral puppies in, and they're under 4 months, I can usually turn them. And I can get them. I can get them started, and then after I get that initial breakthrough thing done, then send them to a foster and they can turn them around. But feral cats, basically, when we've run into that, we just try and find a farm that'll take it, get the cat fixed.
Yeah, and then it won't reproduce.
Just give it to a farmer.
And then he's the mouse abatement program situation, right? Which that works out too. I mean, the cat that we have here has never in his life not had food, but he still kills stuff every chance he gets. They're killers.
They've got a lot more tools. I mean, as far as in modern times, from a hunting perspective, a cat's going to have a higher survival rate just because it's faster. It's able to stalk better. It's able to, get more small game. I mean, dogs they're going to be a pack hunter.
Yeah.
And are you going to be able to find 3 or 4 more dogs to run down a deer, to run whatever it is? And we had one pack that was actually a cannibal pack of dogs that was up there that was killing other dogs and eating them.
Right.
They finally, the law enforcement finally took them out. But I mean, that's the thing is it's like a wolf pack. That's how dogs will hunt, whereas cats are solitary hunters, so they don't have to have more animals to be able to provide for them.
Now, I saw a video on the Facebook page about a female dog that you had fostered for a while, and then you found a home, so you were taking her somewhere.
Yeah, it was just to another shelter.
Oh, another shelter. Okay, all right. And then they'll find her. I mean, if you go to the shelters, I got to imagine it's different because geographically there's no one there, or not that many people population wise. But if you go to a shelter here, some of them first are kind of disgusting. It's like, you need more volunteers to clean this place up because it's a mess. But it's like always a mixture of cats and dogs in there. And, I went to a shelter when we were looking for a cat for my daughter, which, my daughter has nothing to do with the cat now, and I now own a cat. But when we went to a couple shelters to look, and every shelter we went to, there was 2 or 3 groups of people that were looking at the animals at the time. Do you get foot traffic in there too?
No, I don't, because it's just because it's my house.
Yeah.
And it's a rescue. And there's a huge methamphetamine epidemic up there.
Oh, wow.
As a deputy, I would say that 90% of the property crimes and a large percentage of the other ones are related to IV meth use. So, and that's a common thing that everybody is dealing with up there, is the problem with meth. So
now wait, IV intravenous?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that they took meth that way.
Oh yeah. No, they don't even. No, they'll smoke it sometimes, but you get a better high if you shoot it, I guess. So most people up there shoot it. I would say probably 70%. The rest
that always boggles my mind. Someone that's in a completely shitty situation would like to stay awake for 3 days.
It's the high. I mean, from what I've been told, it's an escape from reality. It's like anything else you do.
Euphoric.
It's like
So
it's, you know what, it's like drinking, it's like smoking pot, it's taking pills, whatever, you know, somebody is doing. Typically they're doing it to put their mind in a different place, you know.
Got it.
And meth is just another way to do that. I mean, and it's cheap. I mean, obviously I wouldn't suggest it, but it's an escape. It's like any chemical that we take to try and relax is an escape from our current mental state to get into a different one.
Sure,
So meth,
sure.
and the thing with meth is, I think the problem is that, and what I've heard from most of the guys, and I've got a lot of friends up there, a lot of friends that have used and managed to get clean and get off of it, is that they get hooked so fast. I mean, it's like legit one time, and it's,
Yeah, you're looking to do it again.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
and that's from, you know, I talked to one dude and he had done basically every drug there was. And he said, meth is the most evil thing that there is. He said, because as soon as you do it once, you're hooked.
Yeah, the before and after photos are pretty wild. As far as like, there's some people that looked like attractive people that had the, you know, everything in front of them, and then they look like the moon, man. They look like pockmarked up.
You can tell. And that's the thing I always like to see, is when somebody that I know was strung out, when I see them that they're fat, it's always a good sign. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
hey,
yeah,
dude, it's
right,
like, you know what, I'm
right.
glad. And like, how'd you know I was clean? I'm like, because you put on like 50 pounds and you're actually eating.
Yeah, right.
Which is awesome.
Right. Yeah, and I vacuum in their roof or something crazy.
So yeah, foot traffic wise, due to that, the location, it's not secret, but I don't have it open to the general public.
Right.
You know, I had some issues with things going missing before, but the thing is any place that you have a drug problem, you're going to have that. So I just kind of keep it.
So do you screen your volunteers and stuff like that? Because it's your house too.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton of volunteers. I got a couple of employees. I've actually been doing a lot better lately with local volunteers. But I mean, the thing is it takes a long time to get accepted by the community, you know, and that's been a struggle because it's the little cultural things that are different of what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. It took me a long time to learn, because there's things that you wouldn't think of, you know, and it's gotten, you know, to now to where I invited to go to an EP, which is Sweat Lodge, and go to that, and Sundance and the different ceremonies and things like that. So the acceptance part, as that's grown, the volunteer base has grown.
Now, what can people, because I mean, you know, you've got a bunch of friends and stuff like that live in this area. What can someone do that's further away from you to help out? I mean, you know, I don't know. Like, I'm obviously not going to place a puppy because it's so far away. But like, what can some, besides like donating? I saw you had a fundraiser thing that just came up too.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I mean, donating is the number one thing, because that's what saves dogs. But excuse me, we always need online volunteers. I mean, I've got three ladies from down here, one in Joliet, one's in New Lenox, and then I can't think. Oh, my cousin, she's in Streeter, that they're online volunteers, and they help.
Just help put the page together and stuff?
Well, no, I mean, it's because you got to figure, it's like, okay, I get the message comes into the page. So then you have to have somebody that's on there that's opening messages, you know, to read, and then get the information about where it is, and, you know, who's got it, how old it is, has it been sick? You know, they've got a bunch of questions to ask, and then forward it on to me. And then you've got messages just for, hey, you know, I want to get a t-shirt, or I want to adopt the dog, or a million different things. So messages, I think there's like 6 or 7 people that are on there. And because everybody's doing it on a volunteer basis, you know, and all of them have full-time jobs, you know, there's always gaps. So we're always looking for people, for volunteers like that.
Okay.
And then the adoptions team, you know, they're all volunteers, and they're all screening, you know, going through applications.
So yeah, well, explain that a little bit too, the screening, because like, I mean, if someone shows up and they see all the beautiful puppy pictures and they're like, oh, I want a dog, but you know, they're never home, or they live in a, you know, 3rd floor apartment and stuff like that, and they like to get this Saint Bernard that you've got there. Do you screen it that way where you don't? So you're like, hey, no.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take all that stuff into account, because, you know, like a husky in an apartment that you're gone for 10 hours a day, we could make $200 adopting that doggy, but it's not a good home for the dog. So it's like, why rescue an animal only to put it into a dysfunctional home? Right. And like, that's one thing with like money. I always bring up this one example. There was a lady that she was really rich, and, you know, and a lot of people think, oh, if you've got money, then you're going to be able to afford whatever with the dog.
Yeah.
She would be gone all day. When she woke up, she would let the dog out for 10 minutes and she would feed it and she'd put it back in the kennel, and then she'd be gone for 8 or 10 hours. And then she would come home. She would let the dog out for 5 minutes and then put him back in the kennel. And then the dog would sit there until dinner time.
Why
and
you have
then
a dog?
And then at dinner time, she would let him out and let him eat and then put him back in the kennel. And then she called the complaint because the dog was always hyper and the dog's always jumping and tearing up the carpet. And I'm like, well, yeah, because you're keeping it in the freaking box for
right. Well,
15 hours a day.
And breed has something to do with that too. I knew guys that had like German short hairs, and that dog is bred for action. Yeah. Like if I go pheasant hunting and we walk 4 miles, that dog does like 18 miles back and forth through brush. He better have energy. If he doesn't, he's a worth shit hunting dog. So these guys with the German short hairs would get the dog out a mile before they got to it and run the dog next to the car so that it would calm the dog down a little bit. Because if they didn't, they'd get out, be getting the guns out, and the dog's already scaring birds out and running, and it's gone. Like they got to go catch the dog later.
That's why shelter dogs are a good option for people, because you can go in and you can see the temperament and you can see what the behavior's like. Is this dog like jumping nonstop, or is it a chill dog that's just laying on the couch?
Do you ever temporarily put something with somebody with a dog and like, okay, if it doesn't work out, do they bring them back to you? Or
yeah, well, and that's what we ask, is that if the dog doesn't work, that you bring them back. And I think there's actually something in the contract that they have to do that, that we'll refund the money, whatever, but that you're not supposed to sell the dog, because that's that same chain that starts with me in somebody's living room when their kid's crying. And I look down at the kid and like look him in the eye and say, I promise you, I'll make sure this dog gets a good home.
Yeah.
So that requires follow through all the way up after adoption to make sure that, okay, if this is a bad home, we're bringing the dog back.
Yeah.
And we're going to start.
It's obviously non-refundable. Like you can't,
No, we have.
You have refunded their money even?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because you still did all the work for the job.
It comes, and the thing with all of this, and I think that's why we have the following that we do, is it's kind of been based off of principles and not money, and it's the real side of rescue. It's not the polished professional whatever. I mean, it's a dude at 2 a.m. drinking box wine out of a Subway cup, playing with an injured puppy because it's got mange and hurt and nobody wanted to touch it.
Yeah, right.
And it's the same thing with, we're trying to. Everything that's happening with this, we're trying to help animals. We're trying to change things, and we're trying to do it for the right reason. And anytime that we've had somebody that's come in and volunteered that's wanted to shift it away from the right reason to something else, they haven't worked out, and we let them go.
Yeah. Right.
So,
I mean, like, what you call it? Now, does the acreage help you out having the area?
No, because everything's got to be in a kennel.
Yeah, right.
I mean, if it's an adult, if it's like a couple-year-old adult, then it's the fur is like a longer fur than if it's wintertime like now, it can go in an outside doghouse because we've got insulated doghouse with the double run and heated water bowls and stuff. But if it's a year or under, it's got to be on concrete for 2 weeks, just because parvo is such a horrible, horrible disease.
Had a dog that had parvo, and it was touch and go for like 2 weeks, whether he was going to make it or not.
And you're talking anywhere from $600 to $2,000. And the bad thing with parvo is a cold environment like that, the only thing that kills it is UV light. You can freeze it to 200 degrees below zero, and it's not going to affect.
Yeah, it's transmitted through the crap, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, it's only through fecal. It's not urine, it's not blood, it's just fecal. But the problem is, if a dog does that, if he poops in late fall or before winter starts, and it's in a shady spot, and it doesn't get a lot of direct sunlight, which are, our days are really short in the winter. Yeah, that can live for 6 months to a year. I
think a lot of people that live around here don't understand. Like we used to do a fly-in in Canada. It's amazing how short the summer season is when you get right by Canada. And the fly-in that we did was pretty far up. We drove like 18 hours up, and then they flew you 100 miles north of there. But we're flying in with a bush pilot, and the bush pilot's like, it's like the last week of May going into June. He's like, oh yeah, we were just out in snow machines just last week. And I'm like, really? He goes, oh yeah. He goes, all these lakes a week ago covered in ice. So May is wintertime.
Yeah.
We're there.
It is where we're at too.
Right. I mean,
May is
you're center of the country too. So like you're the coldest, whatever they say, Fargo's the coldest, spot in the country that hits the cold, because the coast is what keeps, if you're in Quebec, it's super nice there. Like as far as the spring and the fall and all that goes, because the water's warm, the ocean. Uh, so yeah, no, I mean you got to be right. That's tough. And then if that stuff's in shade, it's making it all the way through the winter. Parvo's, I didn't think about it that way, but parvo's got to be a bigger problem up there than it is in Florida for sure.
Yeah,
Right?
it's it was, when we went down for Hurricane Harvey for the disaster stuff. I ran into a lady that she was running a shelter, a shoestring budget, only a small handful of people, and she was just fed up, and she went on a rant about everything with money and local politicians and people not taking care of animals and everything else. And it was identical to the problems that I faced. The only thing different was that they lost dogs due to heat exhaustion and heartworm, and we lose them due to freezing to death and parvo.
Yeah.
So, and it was the same thing. She was in a poor area. So yeah, it's, up by us, it's, I mean, what I like wintertime, typically when it gets down into the little bit below zero for 4 or 5 days, that's when you have the first die off. And that's when the really sick, really weak ones, they don't make it. And then, as it goes, then when you get like the planet bullshit, as I call it, one to where it's 20, 30, 40 below for 4 days, then that's your main die off. And the thing that, not to promote our dogs, but natural selection still exists with the population. And you don't get that in too many places.
Yeah.
Because if a dog is out on their own, and they don't have somebody that's taking care of it, they've got to find shelter. They've got to find food, they've got to be healthy, because if they're not, in a lot of cases with the strays, they're going to die. So it's not like Muffy the poodle, who her mom and dad are in some breeder's wall on cages that, okay, now it's 6 months have gone by, I'm going to get her pregnant again so I can sell more puppies.
Right.
This is actual having to survive in the wild and having to make it through a lot of adversity. So, my opinion, a lot of them are smarter. They're smarter and they're better adapted, and they, health problem wise, we have a lot less health problems.
Now, how about, like I said, I mean, I said something that was probably stigmatic of, like, I said I was going to take a chance on a shelter dog. The next dog I'm going to get is going to be a dog. And so you would say that, that's a stigma that you got to get rid of, that they're not taking a chance, that most of them, I mean, do you have a lot of like wildly successful stories as far as people that came to get a dog? The dog was, skittish. We took a dog from a family. It was a purebred English Springer Spaniel, and its main problem was a female dog. Every time it was excited, it peed everywhere. It just peed everywhere, and the people who had it in an apartment. They should have never had an apartment in the first place. I think they were gone all day long, so the dog was constantly holding it. And then when the people came home, she was super excited. She'd pee everywhere. So they didn't want the dog anymore. We took that dog. We had a nice backyard. There was 3 kids. We hardly had any problem with the dog peeing in the house. Now, if you got her super excited, she would pee on the patio or whatever outside. Hose, it's gone, whatever. That's not a problem. But if you have an apartment, it's an issue, right? Because she's constantly pissing in the house. I would think that if you had success stories, those would be great things for your webpage. Would be success stories.
When you look at the write a comment thing, there's so many comments on there from people that have adopted. And whenever we'll do a post, people will send pictures of, their dogs that they adopted from us. We don't have a lot of returns. We don't have, a lot of bad things that happen. Every once in a while, yeah, you've got a dog that'll have some kind of issue that the owner isn't ready to deal with, or more importantly, that the owner isn't ready to invest the time to deal with, because it's the thing with rescue dogs, with shelter dogs. Number one, a rescue dog, like not a shelter dog, because there's a difference. Because a rescue is basically, okay, I'm going to stop you from dying right now. Mm-hmm. And then once I get you stable and I get things set up, I'm going to send you to a shelter, which is a longer term environment that people can come into to look and see what you're like.
Yes, they get foot traffic, right.
But in the thing that everybody has said is, you can't, assign human emotions to animals, but in my opinion, you can when it comes to being appreciative. When you have a dog that has literally come from nothing, that has been starving, that hasn't had food, that, you know, has had injuries and hasn't had attention and all these problems. It's like a spoiled kid versus a kid that's grown up rough. They appreciate that stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They appreciate just the fact that you give them food versus, you know, Muffy, the line bred Labradoodle, whatever it is, because you wanted to have one of those because of the name, because of the look, whatever. You know, they don't care. You know, I want this, I want that. They just, I don't know. I mean, rescue dogs from where we're at, like I say, they're more appreciative. And I've heard that so many times that's why I kind of stand behind it, even though the psychologists say it's not a possibility.
That's why I like ugly women.
There you go. But I mean, the thing with any shelter dog is, the thing with the shelter dog is that you can go in and you can gauge that personality, you know, versus I wanting a dog that looks like this. And okay, I want to pick that one because he's got a brown spot in his eye. Well, you know what? He might be a raging asshole.
Yeah. Sure,
you know, that's the other thing that you get too, is when you have purebreds and line bred dogs that, you know,
I shouldn't pick a dog that's going to look good on Instagram.
No, actually, you know, the really adopted ones are the really cute ones and the really ugly ones. It's those middle ones. The black ones are the worst.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah, it's like a dog racist thing. Black dogs, it's called black dog syndrome. They are the least adopted dog in any shelter.
I wonder if that's a thing, because some of them look a little bit like I won't say shifty, but like, I don't know, when I see some black dogs, I think like maybe he's like a little more vicious, or a little like the teeth are a little whiter.
Being a racist.
Yeah, right. I like black women; they're fine. So that is kind of,
it's harder to see them, is one of the main things that they say, is that, you know, a dog that has different colors when they're in a shelter, they'll stand out more. I mean, just the fact that, you know, they're more plain is one of the larger reasons why. But yeah, they've done studies and they're like the least adopted.
Wow. Yeah, my sister had a full out, all the way black cat. And when they came home with it, I'm like, really? No superstition problem at all here, right? That cat's going to cross your path like 3 times a day, and you're cool with that. Like,
and then steal your soul as it goes.
Yes, right. What you call it? But I mean, for you, that's got to be tough when a dog that's in bad shape is a project, right? I mean, that's like a work. And I mean, I saw you like, I was just kidding with the, trying to pick up chicks thing, but it is like, the girlfriend was looking at it, she's like, oh my God. And I'm like, do you realize how much poop that guy's got to pick up? Like, I mean, that's a job. I mean, for that thing. And then there were ones where you were bottle feeding little puppies and stuff like that. Do you have something in when somebody comes and they like, because a puppy's got to be easy to get rid of, right? Like the ones that are 3 months old, that's a dog. That's a brand new, you can make that whatever you want. But do you have something in there that says, hey, we're going to give you this 12-week-old dog, but it's a mandatory, you need to get it neutered or you need to get it spaded? Yeah,
there's in the contract, actually, that's part of it. And we do follow up to make sure that happens. There's rescue people, the rescue community in general is really critical of each other. And there's always a lot of conflict and a lot of drama that, the general public has no idea. I mean, it's a Jerry Springer train wreck a lot of times with different rescues. Yeah. And I've had one that said that, we shouldn't even be operating because we're not spaying and neuter dogs before we adopt them. And, there's no reason that we shouldn't even be allowed to run because we're not doing that. Because
is there a competition thing or just a mean girl thing?
It's a little bit of both. It's, and I was the same way with certain things, like, people need to learn to work together for the bigger picture. And if you don't like how another organization is doing things, and if they're not doing it your way, it doesn't mean that it's wrong. And my argument was to her, okay, I'm going to stop today. We rescued 75 dogs this month, and they're all going to die next month because the next 75 we can't take in, because if we spend the money to spay and neuter each of them, we're broke.
Yeah. Right.
So tell you what, we'll do it your way, and I'll just send pictures of dead puppies to you. How you like
that?
Right. And then she's like, wow, I'm not saying that. So yeah, that's how we follow up with it. And we try and make sure that, that everybody does it, and we've had a really pretty good rate with doing that. I mean, ideally in a perfect world where we had a lot of money, we'd do it. But the problem is, because of the lack of vet care, you're looking at $200 to spay a female dog.
Yeah.
And if you're adopting it for $200 and or, as soon as they come in, the first thing they get weighed, they get vaccinated, depending on if they have mange or something else. So you get a mange treatment, flea and tick treatment, and then the cost of food, the cost of puppy pads, vet care. I mean, when they come in and they're hurt, I'll typically do a triage thing of, okay, this dog either needs to get to a vet right now, or I can stabilize it and give it something for pain and keep it through until morning time, so we can get it to a vet to avoid the emergency vet fee. So, there's a lot of costs that go in with it to where it isn't feasible where we're at right now to be able to spay and neuter every animal that goes out.
Right.
But we try and make sure, like I say, we've got things in place to make sure that that's done on the back end.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I mean, obviously that you're doing it for the greater problem, which is more dogs. And if you make sure every dog that comes out of here gets spayed or neutered, then you're going to have less dogs. In the end, we had a golden years and years ago, maybe like 20 years ago, that she was a show line, like, all like ribboned out and everything else. Her parents were, and the thing with that was she had to be like, it was a limited registration where they would never let you breed that dog. So then I think it was purely competition. They didn't want you to breed more show dogs, which I know a lot of people that get a purebred dog and immediately, their plan is, I'm going to buy 2 females, a male, and then we're going to have in-house every 3 months. We're going to have a litter of 12 puppies, and I'm going to make money in this situation.
Breeding is a big business.
Yes. Right. Right.
And that's what it is it's a business. And I mean, I have a lot of contacts with the ASPCA and the Humane Society and PETA and the other organizations. And, people don't see the dark side of puppy mills and of what happens. I mean, and it's horrific. I mean, it's worse than a lot of the livestock industry, the way they're treated.
Right.
And when you do see that more often, that's why I have such a distaste for breeders. I know there are responsible ones, and that's great. But, at the same time, when somebody's out, oh, I want to make an extra $800 and I want to, breed and have these 8 puppies. Okay, you just created 8 more puppies, but these 8 dogs die in the shelter because it's overcrowded and they don't have room.
Sure.
It's like, you've got that $800. So how about I trade you a dead puppy for every $100?
Yeah.
And that's my mindset. And it's, it's not necessarily right because people have a right to do that. But, when you see so many dogs needing homes and shelters, and when you have as many rescue contacts as I do, for begging and pleading, hey, this dog has got 24 hours left. It frustrates me to see, but I mean, humans suck.
Oh yeah, no, humans are right. They're the problem with everything. I'll tell you what, humans. I mean, if the lake that I'm on had no humans on it, it would be like teeming with fish constantly. And it's even just knuckleheads that catch stuff and don't release it correctly. They think they released it and it still died. I mean, yeah, no, humans jack up. I remember sitting in we'd go out hunt and then go to Gallagher's pub for lunch or something like that. And they'd see us with our hunting boots on and, hunting gear that we came in there with. And the guy's like, you used to hunt around here and shoot pheasants all the time. And, one time we went out and we shot 16 pheasants in one day. And I'm like, I looked at him, I'm like, who's we? And he's like, well, just me and my buddy. And I'm like, oh, and then the next thing out of his mouth is, and the damn coyotes ate all the pheasants. Like, no, dude, you shot them all. Like, you killed all of them. You and another guy, there's a 2 pheasant bag limit on a day, and you both shot 8 in a day. Yeah, there's no more birds. You killed them. So, people got misconceptions. It's not them. It's generally human beings that jack up everything. But for me, I couldn't do what you do because I don't think I could give up the dogs. Like, once you build that dog, like you're saying, he's grateful for, that's got to be awesome, first off. And then secondly, like the nervousness of, okay, now I got to let this dog go to someone who could jack it up again. Like, that's got to be tough. It's got to be.
Honestly, all of it's tough, and it's kind of been an evolution to where, I just almost had like a nervous breakdown about a month ago just because I get way too overwhelmed with everything. But you have to not give up. That has to be like the number one thing, is that no matter what happens, I'm not going to give up. And that has carried me through up until this point. And when you lose one, what I've learned is, whether it's through disease, whether you had to put it down, whether you had to take a vet to put it down, whatever the deal is, you can't dwell on it. I mean, I've done that. I've dwelled on it and I felt like crap, and I still do sometimes, but you have to just put it aside and move on and say, you know what, there's another one that needs to be saved. I couldn't do that one. Maybe I'll try a little harder next time or do something a little bit different. And a lot of times there's nothing that you could have done. You know, there's still, I read a book when I went up to the Best Friends Animal Sanctuary in Utah. It's the largest animal sanctuary in the country. And one of the founders, I had lunch with her and she gave me a book. And one of the biggest things that happens in rescue is guilt. You know, guilt that you didn't do enough, guilt that you could have done more. And the thing is I'm not Superman. So, you know, I've got to know that there's boundaries, that, you know what, I can do what I can do, and that's it. But yeah, I mean, letting go, I would say, I think we're probably up to like somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 rescued. And out of those, you know, I would say there's probably 400 that I really wanted to keep. And then there was 200 that I absolutely fell in love with. And then there was like 50 that it just killed me to let go. But the realization is that, you know what, if I let this one go, then that means that another one is going to be able to come in and
yeah.
And it's, I mean, and it's sad sometimes, you know, that's like, I've had some that I've held back, you know, Aaron or Kim, somebody will call me and be like, hey, there's, you know, a foster for this one. Is you ready to go? And I'll want to keep it. And I'll be like, nah, I'm just going to hold on to it for one more week. And then I come to the point finally to where it's like, I'll just come up and be like, this dog needs to go today.
Yeah, right.
Because otherwise I'm keeping it, because that's what I've got. I've got 5 dogs, that 4 of which are all from up there, and they're all mutants that were unadoptable. That, you know, so you have to draw a line to where you can't keep. And I had this one, it was a husky named Henry, and he was just a born therapy dog. I mean, he was probably like a year and a half old, but was just the most mellow and chill and nice. And like, and I get a lot of pit bulls that are like that are emotionally in tune to people, to where they can read, you know.
How come there's never ever, like, because I mean, guy in a wheelchair, I've seen a whole mess of service dogs. Never in my life seen a pit bull with the vest on, like a real, I mean, emotional dog, or, you know, whatever, but never one that it's always a lab or a retriever. Or
with the last dog, I held him until found the absolute perfect person that had lost her dog and needed a dog like that, and sent it to her. So that worked out good. With service dogs, actually, I talked to women about that. It costs to train a service dog from start to finish. It's like $32,000 to $40,000. So they're real specific about the dogs that they use. So they actually have breeders that breed dogs with those traits to become service dogs. So that when they put all of this big investment, you know, but I think that at some point it'd be nice. And that's what we looked at, was trying to get something going with them, because they do a program with the prisons about training service dogs and doing it with shelter dogs. Because I mean, I've experienced it to where and it was a pit bull, and he was freaking psycho. You know, he always wanted to play, wanted to run, wanted to jump nonstop, go, go, go. As soon as he saw you, and I kept working on the jumping with him. And I had a buddy that, Mike, his son was in the military, doing great, straight A's in school. Something happened with the girlfriend and he killed himself.
Oh, wow.
And I saw it on Facebook and I looked and I'm like, no. And I went outside and I sat down and I just was looking at it, and I'm not a big crier, but I started crying, you know, because it just hit me that it's like, you know, I've known this kid since he was little.
Sure.
And this dog, this crazy, insane pit bull, comes running up, and he literally, as he's getting ready to jump, he stops himself and he kind of looks at me, you know, and I'm still like sobbing, but I'm like wiping my eyes, and he comes up and he puts his head against my chest.
Yeah.
And just sits there.
Right.
And that's all he's doing is he's just snuggling up against me. And I mean, it's like, how can you tell me his
demeanor? Just
I mean, how can you tell me that this vicious breed, you know, is all bad, when this dog came up and basically was like, read what was going on?
Sure. No, I believe wholeheartedly there's no bad, you know, dog breeds. It's the way that they're treated to make them bad. But the problem with the pit bull for me is that they've got, if that dog does go bad, he's got the tools jack some stuff up.
There's a greater capacity due to breed build to do damage than a Chihuahua, but
Right.
I think Pit Bull is actually number 11 on the most common dog bite list. Huskies are way up there.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's another one. Like I see people, I like to have conversation with people, but generally I'm not a people person, like in general, like, I don't want to have a conversation with 30 people because, be aggravated. Where I see people that are like, they post a picture of the brand new husky puppy that they bought for the 3 kids that are all under 8 years old. And I'm like, that's going to go south. That's bad. That's a bad idea. And it's purely on, we saw the new Disney White Fang movie and it looked just like this dog. And that's what we want. Listen, you got to pull your head out of your ass because that dog has got hundreds of years of, breeding engineering going on that says he's supposed to be pulling a sled somewhere. It's just like that. His place is not like laying in front of your fireplace or whatever like that, or being on your Instagram or, because they're super cool looking, a husky, but, and I don't want to pick on husky either, but like there's all kinds of dog breeds that if you're I had a great aunt that had a Cocker Spaniel. The Cocker Spaniel loved that woman, hated everybody else. I mean, hated everybody else. You couldn't come anywhere near this lady's house. She wanted to have people over for dinner, and the dog had to be put away, and the dog, like, in a room somewhere, because it would bite you. It would take your ankles out if it was around you. Now, that's not a dog that you should buy when you've got little tiny kids, just because they're going to get bit by that dog.
That comes, I mean, there's like high energy breeds. I totally agree with you. Like a husky for little kids probably isn't going to be a good thing, but it comes back to number one, education, which I think they should actually teach something in schools about kids and pets and about people that get pets, to realize that, okay, another living being isn't a thing. It's not a toy. It's not a present. If you're going to bring something that's sentient, that can, has emotions, and then you need to make an educated decision as a family that, hey, this is a family member and we're going to have to adjust things and we're going to have to spend time training. Like that dog biting everybody, you could fix that in a week and a half.
Sure.
That's the thing is you need to educate yourself. And the problem I think that we run into, and my distaste for humanity, is that, we don't want to do that a lot of times. We want the easy way.
I've got a lady from Blitzen Dog Academy coming on the podcast to talk about, because when I was a kid, we had English Springer Spaniels, and the one was like, he was a terrific dog for hunting and stuff, but he had figured out that his place in the pack in the house was maybe like third, and we had 5 people in the house. So like, some people were below him as far as what he thought. And we took it to a guy named Rojan, who was out of Frankfurt. And it was amazing to me with what, like, it was like 3 or 4 couple hour sessions that this guy could correct with the dog. Like we had a situation where that dog, if you went to the front door to leave, that dog would bolt. He would bust through the front door and be gone. This Rojan guy had the dog settled out that you had to take him to every doorway to do this with him. But it was just a goofy trick he taught us to do with the dog at the doorway. The dog would not go out of the doorway until you went out the doorway first, all the time then. And it was solved. He says the dog is like a computer. Once you program it to do this thing, it does that thing at that doorway. Now, if you take it somewhere else and move to another house, you may have the same situation. You got to redo it again at the new doorway. But he creates a situation where the dog doesn't trust the doorway. And then he won't go out until you go out, sort of a deal. So, yeah, that would be great if someone had some more, probably solve some of your problems if they had more of a knowledge of what to do as far as the obedience goes.
I mean, you can, that's the thing is, if you're having a problem with your dog, because I get a lot of people that'll ask me, and my training, isn't anything professional. It's more or less experience based and from some of the things that I've read. But, Google, man.
Yeah,
it's like, it's like,
so
go,
awesome.
I mean, Amazon, go on. And, there's one, it's the Monks of Newsky, the art of raising a dog or raising a family member. I can't think exactly what it's called, but it's something along that. And it's an awesome book. and it goes through that entire process, and it talks about that. To me, if you're going to buy a dog, you should have to get that book or get some kind of book with it, because it talks about how the dog, knowing its place makes it a better family as a whole.
Sure,
and having discipline and having kennel time, and making the dog wait to go outside and different things, that it helps the dog because the dog understands. And I think the biggest problem with training issues you have is family consistency. Dad does one thing, mom lets the dog get away with things, the kid doesn't that. So that for the dog, the one person thinks, oh, that's mean. Well, by not having consistency, that's what's mean to the dog, because they're confused, because they're like, all right, it's cool if I do this with you, but now I'm a dick if I do this with you. So it's like,
confusing as well.
They need consistency.
The other thing is people sometimes add emotion to a dog that a dog doesn't have. We had dogs for years and years and years growing up. And we never had a kennel or a crate or anything like that. Once we started creating the dogs, it's way better. It's a way better environment. We would have the girlfriend's black lab with the crate open, and if the dog was bored or tired or going to take a nap, he would just go in the crate and take a nap anyway. Door open.
That's a safe space.
Yeah, safe space. That's his spot. There's a rule there too. Some people go beat that dog or whatever like that into the crate. First off, I don't beat the dog. That's just a dumb thing to do in the first place. But definitely, I would never be like punishing or hollering at the dog while he's in his crate. That's his spot. That's the only spot that's his in the entire house. That's his spot. So, people think somehow creating a dog is a bad situation. It's not. The bad situation is you didn't crate the dog. You left him out in the house the entire day. You left for 4 hours. You came back. You chewed the couch up. Then you beat the shit out of the dog for chewing the couch up. If he's in the crate, that wouldn't happen in the first damn place. So you wouldn't have had, your couch would still be intact. The dog wouldn't hate you. Like, everything comes off of that. The dog's still a dog. So put him in a crate. It's a safe environment for him when the door's shut, when you're gone too. So we always crated the dogs. And then, we've always we had 2 crates in the garage, and our Goldens used to go in the garage and you'd find them in the crates every single time. They liked it. They had their own too. Like, I had 2 Goldens. You'd never find the other one in the other one's crate. They'd want to be
they're in their own
spot. Right, for sure. So I mean, if somebody's watching the video, by all means share it. I'll try and put, I haven't done a live one yet, so I don't know, but I'll try and put some links to your Facebook page and stuff like that on this video when I'm done. The original reason you messaged me to be on was the gun thing. You have a different gun culture up in, and I mean, you've got law enforcement background too. Did you look at, did you see Karen's, the podcast with me and her when we did the gun thing? I was amazed. I think she got some backlash because, on social media, I come from a position of I come from a gun culture. Me and my dad don't get along, but I'll tell you what, that guy knows guns. He's a former Marine, Vietnam vet. There was guns and ammo books around the house all the time. I grew up in a gun culture, but the gun culture that I grew up in was a hunting culture. And the gun culture that Karen showed up with was she'd like to take an AR-15 hunting and stuff like that, which to me is preposterous. It's absolutely preposterous. I look at it and I think it's like something, you're compensating for something with that gun in your hand, where shotguns and rifles, they have it's a different tool for a different job. So I come from a gun culture, but I think when we got done with the podcast, we agreed on really too much. People that come from a side where they think that there can be something done in a legislative way to help stop the mass shootings that go on, get upset with me because I believe that something can be done that way. And she still was pretty common sensey, and I think that she got some backlash because if it's not completely slippery slope and the answer to every gun problem is more guns, good guy with a gun in the situation, which I think is a preposterous situation. If I'm in a crowded area and there's a shooter there, another shooter is probably not going to be helpful. And if law enforcement shows up, how do they know who's the original shooter and how we know we all have white hats and black hats on. So I don't know what your take on that is. And like I said, you're in North Dakota now. There's a gun culture up there too that's completely different than here.
It's, I guess the easiest way I could sum it up is both sides need to bend, and it needs to be an all-encompassing solution dealing with, a more of a background check and something to address mental health. I think that there should be a higher standard for certain firearms, and I caught a lot of flack about that. I'm not against the public being able to own an AR, but if you want to get a class 3 license to have something that's fully auto, you've got to go through a more extensive check to be able to get that, and you've got to pay a little bit extra. I mean, I don't see why that should be an issue. And I think the other thing for me personally, and I know there's a lot of people that disagree on this, is that I don't see any reason why you can't take service members that are ex-military and have them be at schools and have them be, okay, that's your function, is that, you are a security guard that does have access to a firearm to be able to defend the school. And people a lot of times will argue against that. And I mean, as a deputy, I've gone through active shooter training. And the thing, if everything else fails for the safeguards, if they slip through the mental health cracks and they slip through the background checks, or they get it, whatever, when they end up in that school and they fire that first round, the only thing it saves those kids is time. And it depends on where I'm at. Am I at, like, if it happened in our county and if we're all at a call that's 40 miles away.
Oh yeah, right. You can't get there.
Then the more time that shooter has, the more people are going to die until he runs out of ammo or until he quits.
Right.
So the faster you can get, the response time is what saves people. And I'm all good with doing stuff on the front end, but in the meantime, it's going to keep happening. You're going to have people keep dying. So I think from a law enforcement perspective, let's protect. And then while we're protecting, let's fix all this other stuff.
Right. You're talking about it. Something that would be, obviously, if you put a guy in a position where this is your job, you're ex-military, you're going to give him some sort of identifying uniform or something that when
local law enforcement
shows up, they're going to know who's who.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is they're going to know who the resource officer is, who the security officer is for that, So I mean, that takes out that thing. And just for the general public, if you're ever in a situation and there is an active shooter and you are armed and you engage the active shooter and law enforcement shows up, immediately drop the weapon, find a safe place, put your hands in the air.
Yeah, right. Right.
That's it. And if
I see that as a viable. I don't see it as a solution. I see that as a viable bridge to get to a spot where we have a better system in place to keep I do see it as a problem with certain guns. And because of the hunting background that I come from, when you're pheasant hunting or goose hunting, I'm allowed 3 shells in the gun. That's it. Then I got to reload 3 shells. So that's all I got. But if I've got an AR that I've got a 50 round magazine, well, that's a completely different animal now. Now I can let 50 rounds go, and it takes no time to pop a brand new magazine, and I got 50 more to go again. You got a pump shotgun or even an automatic shotgun, a semi-automatic shotgun. I got to still stuff 3 shells into this thing for 3 more shots. Now, every time that I got to stop and stuff 3 shells in there, someone could tackle my ass and get this done. Even from a law enforcement background, I know that from my dad being a guy that was a auxiliary Will County cop, at a certain distance, if I have a gun and you have a gun, even in a holster, you're not trained to get your gun. You're trained to go hands with the guy because you got a better chance of getting a hold of him with your hands than you do. You actually have to make a move backwards for a gun where if your hands are available, you can go right to him. What do they say? A knife, you're to back up, but a gun, you charge the guy?
Charge either way.
Oh, well,
I mean,
honestly,
it's
that if someone's got a sharp object, you need to, if you keep your distance, you're going to be safe.
If it's crashing distance. I ended up teaching self-defense for a lot of years. And if you have somebody that has a baseball bat, where do you want to be? Do you want to be at the end of that bat, which is the effective range to where it's going to strike, or do you want to be right in the guy's
face? Now, based on that, I go for him every time.
I mean, it's the same thing with, as far as an edged weapon with the training that I've had, is if you cannot create distance and get away until you can arm yourself in a way that you have an equal or greater tool to be able to engage that threat, then go inside. Go inside and try.
Well, boxing's that way, right? Yeah. So if I've got a guy that's throwing big outside stuff, I step inside, and then he can't hit me the same way. Yeah. The knife thing, obviously, you can do a lot of damage with somebody up close with a knife. If he's got the knife in his hand. For me, also, I think one of the things that was maybe controversial that went on in the podcast with Karen was, I said that a gun is a completely stupid. It's not a defensive weapon. That's an offensive weapon. That is not a shield. It's the thing that I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're super trained with a gun. If I have a gun or if I don't have a gun, and my objective today is I'm the wolf. I'm the guy stalking you. You're a guy with a arm. You're a law enforcement guy. You've got the gun in a holster. You're open carry, right? I can see the gun on you. All I need to do is get the right vantage point, and I can take you out. You're not walking around pointing the gun at everybody all the time. It's an offensive thing to do, not a defensive thing to do. The bulletproof vest is defensive because it's a shield from the thing. If you're saying that in a crowded situation, the right thing is to unleash some more bullets, I'd argue that that's not the way to solve this problem. You're then generally going to hit somebody that's not involved in this situation.
When two parts to that, when you're being attacked in any way with anything, regardless of what it is, gun, knife, whatever, if it's a tool that's being used to cause harm to you, if you can use the same tool to try and stop that harm, then you're using that in a defensive way. But I agree. And the thing I think that needs to happen with concealed carry is that needs to be a way more in-depth class, because concealed carry, the number one problem with it in almost every state that I've seen it in, and I've taken it in 2 different states, is that it teaches people how to paper target shoot. And they sit there and they have all the time in the world to line up the sights and make a nice little hole or a nice big hole. And they put all their stuff down range. And when I went to one of the classes, I'd already gone through a combat shooting class. And, the guy said, okay, go. And you had 30 seconds to fire off. I think it was like 10 rounds. So thing went off. I fired off the 10 rounds in about 3 seconds. And he's like, why did you do that? He's like, your rounds are all over the paper. He said, every single one of those rounds is in an 8x10 sheet of paper. So because if you run into a situation where you got to engage a threat, you are not going to have time to line up the sights. You're not going to have time to do that. So I think where the danger comes in of the good guy with a gun theory is that you have most shooters, they're target shooters. And you might be an awesome target shooter. I mean, you might be able to put everything through a dime-sized hole, but it takes you time to do that. And there's no stress. When you do combat shooting, which is basically, okay, you've got an 8x10 target, which is center mass, and you want to put as many rounds in there as quickly as you can, but also doing it with movement, also doing it behind cover, and also doing drills like, okay, drop down and do 15 push-ups. And then as soon as you stand up, now draw that weapon in front of them, because that simulates an adrenaline dump. Yeah, so with these concealed carry things, if we're going to have the good guy with the gun thing, then the good guys need a lot more training than what's given right now. Sure.
And like I said, I'm coming from a position where I have never in my life ever thought to myself, I'm going to go wherever I'm going to go. I think I'm going to carry a gun with, like, that's never been my thought. I've never even, like, I'm a guy busting around now in a wheelchair. I mean, seriously, I'm a turtle, man. The minute you flip me on my back, like onto the ground, like I'm not fighting anyone anymore. I've been here. I'll be 17 years in this chair come this spring. I still don't roll around the world afraid every day that someone's going to shoot me or steal something from me. And then the other thing I guess that I have to put in there is, listen, if I'm walking around and I got $50 on me, which I don't even usually have that on me, now it's credit cards and all that other stuff. I don't ever, I'm not dealing in cash. But even if I had $200 on me and someone said, okay, Someone's going to rob you today. I've got a crystal ball and I've seen it. And you can carry this gun, shoot this person to death over $200, or just give them the $200. I'll give them the $200. I'm not taking somebody's life over $200, and I'm never carrying $200 anyway. So, for me, it's a false sense of security. And then you also rolled into 2 times in my life, which is not a big thing to say because I've been in way too many scuffles to even go through them all. But 2 times in my life, I've been in situations where a guy had a pipe and he was fighting Shanahan, and the guy with the pipe, the biggest mistake he made today was the pipe. Because if Dan didn't get a hold of the pipe, he wouldn't have broke the guy's arms. Another one was Bouncer, that I don't know if you know the guy or not, Roy, in Joliet. Same situation. Guys had softball bats. They decided they were going to, and Roy warned them like 3 times, put the bats away, boys, or you're going to get in big trouble. He ended up breaking both their arms with the bats because you brought – one guy's an animal and the other guy's not an animal. So all you did was up the ante when you brought the weapon into the situation. You were going to get you have 10 minutes to go. You say you got to, sorry, man. You gonna try to work out or no? You got to.
No, I got to be somewhere.
Sorry.
It's all good.
But so all they did was up the ante. So now when Granny's got the 22 in her purse and the guy goes to mug her for what's in her purse and she tries to get the gun out, Granny just went from she's going to lose the $30 she had in her purse to now she's probably going to get shot.
But the thing too, on the flip side of that is what was Granny's potential of being harmed? Because I know that I've gone to a lot of calls to where basically they just said I had a gun and the guy stopped trying to kick the door in. I mean, and here's anotanother example too.
Oh, sure. That's great. But you don't need a gun for that. You just say you got it.
Yeah, you say you got it. But what happens if that person does break the door down? You know what I mean? I'm sorry. I get it. And I think that if we can fix all the bad guys and if we can get all the bad guys guns off the streets, that's great. But I mean, from what I've personally seen, it's a tool to be able to, it's a force equalizer to where if you're more powerful than I am and you intend to do me physical harm, then that's a tool that I can use to equal that out.
Oh, I don't disagree.
And to me, money, no, I wouldn't shoot somebody over money. And I've been mugged before when I used to repo cars and been in some sticky situations. And the only time that you should use a weapon like a firearm is if you're in fear of great bodily harm or death. And if it's a substantial thing, and in those cases, I mean, I carry all the time, I'm not right now, it's in the truck, but,
sure.
And I don't do it because I'm afraid. I do it. I mean, for me personally, because I'm still a sworn peace officer. And even though this isn't my jurisdiction, if there was something that happened that somebody was getting stabbed or shot or whatever, I've got a duty to respond.
Sure.
But, that's the only thing that I look at it is just, it's a tool. And it's a tool that if I run into a situation where they're using something that has a similar level of force, if you've got a gun and you're shooting up a school or you're doing whatever, there's not a whole lot that I can do other than a human shield thing. Mm-hmm. And that really isn't effective. But if I have something that I can use that'll put us on closer to the same level, then I'm going to take advantage of that.
Right.
But
I don't disagree with that at all.
There needs to be more training.
The training, right? You're right. And I agree.
Right. And it needs to be
just arming teachers is probably not a great idea as far as
not unless you're going to send them into a combat shooting thing. And I mean, there's a way that it would be feasible if you had teachers that wanted to do it, that were okay with doing it. That's not something that you should be forcing somebody into and mandatorily arming teachers. But if you've got a school and you've got 4 teachers that are like, hey, I'd like to do it, and you actually put them through a combat shooting class,
Now that all sounds great, but we're not even buying magic markers for our teachers. Yeah. So, we don't have money for that. So now we got money to send them to, and I mean, some of that stuff for me, it's a freedom thing too. Listen, if you get your kicks and you have a lot of fun going to the range and shooting paper targets or, doing Hogan's Alley and you're, things come up. Hey, if that's fun for you, I think that's great. It's a free country. I think you should be able to do that stuff. I'm never one that says that we should be confiscating guns or anything like that. I do look at some guns and be like, all right, listen, the problem with the gun thing is you can turn a certain age in Illinois, get a FOID card, your background check, you never got in any trouble. You'd be the biggest bonehead in the world You can go buy whatever gun you want. They don't look at you and go, okay, you're 21 years old. You can only buy these shotguns. You got to wait till you're 28 to buy that AR. Nope, right away. You can go right there if you've got the dough and buy something that you could walk into a crowd and just start whacking away. And it's just insane.
I think that needs to change. And you got to realize, just for people that don't know me, I was the survivalist. I still have the freeze-dried food and the medicine and the ammo and the guns.
A prepper?
And I have, before it was being a prepper. I mean, I had this stuff 15 years ago just from simple preparedness. And I was a very staunch Second Amendment supporter. Thou shalt not infringe. And there's no way that you should be able to take away my right to keep bear arms. And that meant and I was hardcore in that.
Sure.
And a slow realization, understanding, and maturing, I think, and that offends some people when I say that I matured to a point that my stance has changed. That was just my personal evolution to now the understanding that, okay, you know what? Some of these things, no, everybody should have the right to keep and bear arms, but we should kind of look at regulating a little bit more some of these arms. Because then I had a buddy that, I had a Facebook post that just went absolutely.
I think I caught part of it.
Yeah, and it went bad. I ended up unfriending a couple of people. One guy went on a personal crusade on his own Facebook page, against me and my job and all kinds of stuff because he was so mad. But I think we just need to be reasonable about it, because plain and simple, there are some people that have weapons that I don't feel comfortable with them having because I know they're freaking whack jobs. You know what I mean? And it's okay.
Well, my problem is the ballistics of it all too. If you've got this AR-15 and you think you're going to do home defense with this, and you live in a vinyl sided box, all tight against everybody else, then you just start pounding off full metal jacket freaking rounds with your 223 in the house. That's going through that vinyl sided wall and into the next house too. Where if you've got a shotgun, it's probably not making it in there. So
and that's the thing with regulation again. That get frangible rounds for the 220. There's things you can do, but the problem is nobody cares about any of this until another school gets shut up. So nobody's going to do anything.
I just think that there should be more education to that stuff. Like I said, I grew up in a house where guns and ammo was laying there. My dad could tell you the drop in 50 yards on a 22 round, if there's hardly any, in 50 yards. But on a 223, the round drops a whole lot faster. So he knew the ballistics, what was going on. So he knew the tool he had in his hand when he was using that tool, where there's no reason that you need to know that stuff to buy that thing, which is insane to me. And it's the same thing with, you don't go buy your 16-year-old son of Oldsmobile 442 and go, all right, son, hit the road. He's going to go kill somebody today with 442 horsepower. That's too much car. You gotta work into this situation. And then, it sounds like, and next time you're back in town, by all means, come back and we'll continue this conversation because you've got a background in it. But me and Karen left it with similar stuff. She's like, yeah, there needs to be more training. Yes, there needs to be more maybe someone that wants 15 AR-15s, you need to take another look at them. And psychologically, why do you need 10,000 rounds of ammunition at your house? And maybe it's just because he enjoys it, and that's fine. But if you're some sort of psychological profile that we can go through to make sure you're not a guy who's, gonna wage a, assault on some crowd or something like that, because they're out there, obviously. So, those kind of things, need to be fixed. But otherwise, we left there, and I think she got some flack from the people that you're talking about that you got in arguments with, because it's the slippery slope, tyrannical government. Listen, if you haven't paid attention to our armed forces and you think somehow from your guns that you got at Walmart, you're going to overtake that, you're on crack, because they're going to squish you like a grape. Ruby Ridge, these things all happen where these people who are trained people with the guns didn't fare so well. Waco, you know what I mean? It all went bad. So,
yeah, that's a yeah.
Right.
We'll have to talk about it.
Go for it. You got a place to be. But thanks, man. Like I said, I'll try and put some stuff out there. Please, if you're looking at this video, subscribe, share the video, get the word out on the shelter stuff. It's good to see you.
You too.
Yeah, it's been a long, long time. It's too bad I have we talked before, you're maybe gonna get a workout in, but we went way too long. We went almost 2 hours here, but cool, man. I will end this and get you out of here. Well, cool. I appreciate the stuff that you're doing with the dog stuff. Dogs have always been a, important thing as far as I go. We've always had dogs. I'll always have a dog until the day I'm dead. But there's, and there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of things that people don't.
I can give you some ideas next time I'm through too.
What do you mean?
Of like things that people should know, interesting topics about
Yeah.
animal stuff makes it easier on you. But yeah, I know I got an uncle in Wisconsin that he's got